Hello everyone, welcome to another video from the Tradelands Nation. We are finally back after a long hiatus to start reporting on the events of Tradelands once more. And in May, the hottest topic was mystery crates returning to the game. So we will start there, as we always do, by taking a look at the economy. As of the closing bell on May 31st, the M&G index closes at 25,409, up nearly 6%. The market is largely steady, with a few changes to items and drop rates. The upward momentum is a reflection of additional items that require using iron to build, but really this upward trend is actually due to a slight uptick in price inflation, a result of the yearly trend of players attempting to convert items to doubloons prior to the auction, which has in the past consistently carried a minimum threshold doubloon requirement in order to participate in that auction. The JSI index ends at 21,443, up 6.75%, a gain of 1,400 points. This index, and more importantly the timber felling industry as a whole that it represents, has been the highlight so far in 2024, pretty much reaching parity with the mining industry in terms of profitability for players. The addition of new ships to the game has a high impact on this index, and the late month dip, which started on May 27th coincidentally, was also the same day that exclusive woods were added back onto the market, so you can see the impact of that decision. It also means that the market is healthy in the timber felling industry, and it is responsive to changes that are made in-game. That means that this should be a profitable profession for most players as a result. And finally, the earnings index. It continues its long slump, ending at 42,343, down 3.75%. The stabilization at the end of the month started when the new 9th anniversary mystery crates hit the market. This market wants to correct, but uncertain valuation of crate items are causing the prices to stagnate in the earnings index. And yes, mystery crates are, in fact, the main topic at the end of the month. And that is the focus of our market highlight today. Every item crate that comes out, there seems to be many comments about why crates even exist in the game of Tradelands. And from an economic standpoint at least, we can provide an answer to that question. This is our market strength report. The blue bars on this report show the total value of the transactions we recorded by day in Tradelands. The chart shows the total value of those transactions in doubloons and gives us a side-by-side comparison in terms of how the economy is performing overall. The higher bar means that more trading occurred on that specific day. And for this specific month, if I were to draw a line on this graph that would show exactly where mystery crates were released, it would be here. And that is the impact that crate releases have on Tradelands. Looking left of this line, it doesn't resemble anything like what you see on the right side of this line. Said another way, the best performing day prior to the release of crates is significantly lower, almost by 10 million doubloons lower, than the worst performing day after crates were released. And I also have the benefit of foresight when I report this to you, since I'm recording this in June, and I have already seen that the market continues to stay at this new level of activity. But that isn't really saying much, given that we've seen this exact same behavior every single time crates are released back into Tradelands. In effect, crates act as a way for the developer to level set the economy and keep it healthy and on a positive trajectory. It's worth noting that the right side of this is considered healthy, whereas the economy shown on the left of this line is not. Having 2 days at under 10 million transaction is dangerously low, while swings in the 50 to 100 million doubloon range are usually single bulk sellers attempting to transact goods back and forth to make a profit. The buyer and seller pressure report for the month shows just how close we came to a complete default, as buyer demand should be about half of what the seller demand is in a healthy economy, at least in terms of Tradelands. From here we can see that the release of mystery crates actually helped to reset the demand levels to their correct levels. But the impact of the economy as a whole is only one side of this mystery crate story. The other question is, are the crates even worth buying? And I don't mean buying them for Robux, I'm talking about buying them from one player to another for doubloons. And to answer that, we first have to do some simple math. And I'm going to use the guidance of another player to do this math, Wood, who did an evaluation of the items from these crates. We are going to use his pricing suggestions as our baselines. We take the value of the items that we could obtain in the crates, and then we multiply those by the percentage that you can obtain those, which are listed on the crates items themselves. Add these up and we can measure the actual true value of a crate. Even if you don't agree with the prices that are shown, you can adjust those on your own and do the same math for yourself and determine what you think these crates are actually worth. But using Wood's pricing suggestions, we get an intrinsic value for these crates that lands somewhere around 15,000 doubloons per crate. In our own analysis, which follows the same principles but is more complex and is based on our own price guide, it came out to a value that fluctuates between 16k and 17k. So really we're in the same ballpark if you really think about it. Purchasing a crate from a player is currently hovering between 25,000 and 50,000 per crate, which means even on the lowest end of this spectrum, the minute you open a crate, you've lost a third or more of its value. Now you might wonder why then do crates sell for a minimum of 25,000 per piece, and that's because if you had the Robux to spend, you had two options on what to spend them on. One was to buy a crate and the other was to buy premium tokens. And the premium tokens, of course, were used for exclusive items, such as the new woods that were on the market, as well as others. And premium tokens are currently selling for 248 per piece, or in other words, 24,813 doubloons for 100 of them, which is the cost of one crate. So you effectively lose money if you sell a crate for anything less than 24,000 doubloons because the alternatives are worth more. And so the ultimate answer to that question is no. These new crates are not worth buying for doubloons. So my advice is to know that going in before you buy it. But if you're opening a crate, you should do so in the context of keeping whatever item that you get and using that for yourself, rather than trying to do it in order to earn a profit through these crates. And this is in contrast to the other crates that have been released, specifically the Birkeland crates, which came out last year. They offered the prize tokens, which gave you an option to actually build your own item in the style that you prefer, which we are now believing may have been a once and done thing and may not come back again. And of course, the other crate is the Enyolan crate, which follows the same mechanics as this 9th anniversary crate. But the difference here is that the Enyolan items actually sell for a higher value, which means the intrinsic value of these mystery crates are higher than the 9th anniversary crates that are available now. Or said another way, if you have your choice to pick an Enyolan crate or a 9th anniversary crate, if selling them for a profit is your ultimate goal, the Enyolan crates are currently worth more. But to conclude this section on the mystery crates, I actually want to end this on a positive note regarding these 9th anniversary crates. Most of the items are cosmetic upgrades to some of our favorite items in the game. These new rapiers are just stunning, and that's just one example. There are other weapons in this as well. The addition of brass has completely upended the brass market, turning it from a seller's market to a buyer's market, which is a good thing for the distribution of this material throughout the game, especially to newer players. And lastly, I want to highlight the importance of the transparency that came with the crates announcement. One being the explanation on its impact to the Enyolan crates, but more importantly, the clarification that the items in this crate were considered legal. It may not seem like much, but in the roleplay events I've had the honor of recording, more than once I've accidentally recorded footage of a player who was using an unauthorized weapon, only to have a veteran of the game or some officer go and tell them to put it away before they get in trouble. This makes things a lot easier in that regard if you consider what it's like to be a new player attending one of your roleplay events for the first time and not knowing the rules. And while the community policing itself to make the game fair is an excellent thing, standardizing what is considered war legal at the source is even better. And for most players, the first good weapon they own probably originated from a crate. So I see this as a positive move for the game. It even makes this a good gift item for anyone who might be attending a roleplay event for the first time in their entire history of playing Tradelands. And speaking of roleplay, the events of May saw a return to normalcy after several months of very traumatic events in Tradelands. This is hopefully the final part of what has become one of the ugliest chapters in Nova Balreska's history, and it ends with a revolt. Before covering that revolt, a quick synopsis of how we got here. Admiral Ali's disastrous burn campaign completely wiped out every Novan fleet west of Salem, when the Purshovians' 303rd Fleet, led by the now infamous tactician Admiral Spirit, outmaneuvered every one of them, defeating them in detail in 3 consecutive engagements. The Chancellor then agreed to become a vassal of Enyola, with the obviously flawed thinking that they would help Nova wage their war against Purshovia if they became their vassal. But instead, Enyola did what any smart person would have done in that situation, and they instead completely stripped the Nova Navy of all useful personnel and material in order to rebuild their own fleet in their own ill-fated war against Whitecrest. The 2 events that would set the fate for the month happened next. First is that the Purshovian invasion fleet neared Nova Balreska. The scared soldiers of the Novan Navy could only watch in terror, but this is when the citizens of Nova Balreska, and an event now called the Cooper Fleet, hastily set sail in whatever merchant ship they had on hand and armed themselves with whatever weapon they could mount, and formed up to create the battle that mirrored the epic engagement of Thermopylae and held off the Purshovians for an entire hour, causing so many of those Purshovian ships to be seriously damaged that the Purshovians were actually forced to delay their inevitable invasion. The sacrifice of those heroes showed the citizens of Nova Balreska and the rest of their beleaguered island that it wasn't going to be the Nova Ninyolan navy that would save them, but instead the own determination and willpower of their men of valor, and thus the revolt against the oppressive navy was started. At the same time, Whitecrest, which had formed a coalition of Tradelands, won a decisive victory against the remaining elements of the Ninyolan navy at the Battle of Harrisburg, and more importantly, they obtained large caches of small arms and ammunition. King Jungle wasted no time sending all of this to the beleaguered citizens of Nova Balreska, who would use it to great effect in starting the revolution. The citizens of the island operating from the town made an assault on the fort, which was the last stronghold where the Ninyolan navy was holed up. Despite having only one real way into this fort, the citizens pounded the fortress with a mortar that they set up inside of the town, breaking up any attempt to hold a solid defense at the entrance of this fort, allowing them to conduct a direct assault. And in the chaos of battle, both sides were wearing red, so it is hard to tell who was actually coming out on top, until at last, the Nova Balreskan people stood atop their recaptured ramparts and raised the flag of their independence. And in the final wake of this chapter, many of the citizens are said to have wanted to execute the leaders who had made such a boneheaded decision, and that is the decision to join Ninyola. After all, they had nearly destroyed everything that Nova Balreska had created. But as the legend would go, Admiral Alicat made an impassioned speech to the people of Nova Balreska, reminding them of what they did stand for, and noting that it is always in the greatest time of disaster that Nova shows its greatest strength, and this was not a time for sacrifice. For the leaders had paid their penance for their mistake, and now it was time to unite against the threat that still waited outside of their shores. And begrudgingly, the citizens are said to have heard the words of Admiral Ali and agreed, although trust with their leadership was still at an all-time low, and to fix that, Admiral Ali knew he would need a victory that would demonstrate the Navy's capabilities. And for this he turned to his greatest strength, his experience of so many wars and so many campaigns, those that had ended well and even those that had ended poorly. Taking no risks, he immediately paired up with the Whitecrest Navy, which had gained favor with the Novan people after it became clear that there is a stark difference between what a good ally looks like and what a bad ally looks like. Moreover, Whitecrest had supplied Nova with the means to take back its independence, which is actually a testament to King Jungle's skill as a diplomat, and even now was offering Nova Balreska some hand-me-down Whitecrest warships in order to allow Nova a chance to rebuild its navy while the war was still going on. Admiral Ali, using this goodwill that was built between Whitecrest and Nova, asked them if they would lead a joint operation, and the target of that operation would be Lycie. The alliance, which had briefly broken, now reforged, looked like the same one that had won so many victories last year. The battle on the seas would see King Jungle bring the 1st, 4th, and 5th Whitecrest fleet, and would be aided by the Nova Balreskans' depleted 1st and 2nd fleet. And because it was likely that they would be going up against the entire 303rd, Whitecrest would handle the task of pushing back the Purshovians, and the Nova Marines would take the task of landing on the island and taking the fort. Admiral Ali chose this as his opportunity for a quick win, as his previous battles during Operation Velvet Paw showed that the fortress favors the attackers, if the attackers know what they're doing. His strategy was a cautious one. Expecting to retake the town quickly, he would then build a line cutting the island in half, then send in a crew of sappers against the walls of the fort before the push over open terrain would occur from their entrenched positions. Scouts had reported that Purshovians had made upgrades to the fortress since they took it, and it seemed to include new fully mounted Lycian steel cannons, but these turned out to be fakes, and the sapping on the walls was largely overkill once put into practice, with the defenders unable to hold the gate area, being overrun, and Nova Balreska was able to secure the badly needed victory they needed to show that Nova Balreska's army was back in full force. The war now appeared to be in a state of stagnation. The Alliance still had a lot of work to do before they could undo all of the gains that were made by Purshovia during the Novan capitulation. And that's where we stand at the moment, but before we sign off for the month, we have one more update, this time on the east in Corsica. ABM has once again appeared in the Grand Isles. This group has gained a name for itself as the keeper of some of Tradelands' greatest secrets, our own veritable band of treasure hunters, if you will. In fact, it seems that ABM is always at least one step ahead of everyone else in the game, as wherever they turn up, there always seems to be some crisis that quickly follows. I remind you that the chaos that is now called the Purshovian War occurred when ABM lost control of Cannoneer's Key, which later became the primary objective of Admiral Spirit's push into the Grand Isles, to presumably capture whatever secret was hidden on Cannoneer's Key and that ABM was presumably protecting there. And now here they are on Corsica. And we are also reminded that this island, like Cannoneer's Key, is not without its own controversy. After all, we look back at what started the war with Enyola in the first place. As the story goes, a Berkland ship, most likely requisitioned by none other than Vic Wessel, a well-known black market antiquities trader, and the one who provides the items for our annual auction, and he was said to have been searching for something near this island. This, of course, was followed by Enyola attempting to intercept that Berkland ship, only to have its own recon vessel captured by Whitecrest, which begs the question, why were all of these nations here in the first place? Surely there is some greater reason than the presumptive pleasure cruise that these two emperors from Whitecrest and Enyola were taking at this time. Some rumors even speculate they were looking for something, but that something is unknown, and ABM's presence seems to confirm that there was in fact some deep secret hidden on this island. But unless someone from that group is willing to tell us, this will simply remain a mystery. But either way, ABM was presumably tipped off, and some unknown benefactor, either wanting to keep that secret hidden or perhaps even acquire that secret for themselves, paid the Vitalicus pirates to remove ABM's presence from Corsica. And in the following battle, which was focused on the fortress where TCB had previously been excavating, they were attacked and pushed back into the safety of the city on the eastern side of the island. However, we did notice that ABM seemed to put up little resistance. It's almost as if they were attempting to protect something rather than some place on this island. They were retreating to their alliance and made their way past the blockade that was being set up by the pirates. And while the pirates will definitely look back at this as a stunning victory and a showcase of their overwhelming victory in capturing Corsica, we over here remain skeptical. Actually, you can say we think that battle was too easy, which begs the question, has ABM in fact uncovered whatever clue they needed from Corsica, and as a result, are they making their way to the next phase of this treasure hunt? Or even the more ominous question, did they actually find that artifact that they may have been looking for? Only ABM can truly answer this question at the moment. For the rest of us, we will just have to wait and see what happens next. And that means the next chapter of this adventure will have to wait another month. And so until that time, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in-game.